Well, hello everybody, and I really hope you're enjoying the second lovely weekend of virtual railway exhibition organised by BRM Magazine and our very good friends at World of Railways. Today I've got the pleasure of speaking to another really old friend, a gentleman who's well known around the club for being an expert on Thomson Pacifics. But Simon, that's not Thomson Pacific behind you. There's another loco in your life. Can we hear about it?
Yeah, well, as you may guess from the locomotive that is sat behind me, albeit on green screen and not actually at the Bluebell Railway, but this is 35028 Clan Line, for which I am the treasurer of the Merchant Navy Locomotive Preservation Society. And as Lawrence has correctly guessed, it's a Bullied Pacific and not a Thomson one. Well, my association with the MNLPS started a few years back when they were looking for someone to replace Howard Reynolds. Howard and James approached me and asked if I would be interested in becoming the treasurer. And over the last 2.5 years, I have been taking on that role and making it more my own. I'm very grateful to Howard, who is sticking around to help me through the changes. And obviously, with the COVID-19 crisis this year, it has been a really interesting time for railways economically. So this has been an incredible learning curve, and I'm working alongside some incredible people. Some of the best engineers in the country in terms of heritage railways. We're working with for me, the mainline steam locomotive. And that will put a few noses out of joint, I apologise.
Yes, especially Doncaster, I strongly suspect.
Well, maybe. It's all friendly rivalry, you know. You need to have as many mainline steam locomotives as possible running in order to get the word out there. If the general public know that we're still running, right, there's more chance of getting bums on seats, getting all of the trains sold, getting all of the people to see us in action. You know, for me, it's about this locomotive behind me, Clan Line, but equally everything that we do for the heritage movement, for ourselves, we're also doing for everyone in the heritage movement. It really is about selling the best of what we can be as a movement.
And I would absolutely agree with you. I've had a fascinating chat on one of my other interviews with one of the directors of the Bluebell Railway. And obviously the Heritage Railway is a fascinating source of wonderful days out for the family. But Clan Line's a little bit different because she doesn't just go to Heritage Railways to run. She runs on the main line. And that must be a challenge, Simon.
Well, we're quite unique in that setup, Lawrence, in that we are not actually based on any kind of preserved railway, although we have some wonderful friends at a variety of railways around the country. This is London's only steam locomotive, and she is the only steam locomotive in the whole of the country that is based in her original shed, which is in Stewart's Lane in southwest London. We're very much set up to be a mainline locomotive. We're not a heritage railway loco, and we actually visit heritage railways very rarely, and that's normally because we're at the head of the Belmond British Pullman. That's the VSOE, the British leg, that goes out of London Victoria and around the Surrey Hills and around London, and you know, it's one of the most prestigious trains you can find in the United Kingdom. We're very proud to be the locomotive that pulls it.
Yes, it's definitely a train that is on my bucket list. It does look fabulous. Now, of course, when we look at the heritage railways, we're still very much in the days of traditional signalling. Of course, the main line is starting to move on, so that must be a challenge to run a steam locomotive in that environment.
It is becoming more of a challenge. So, for example, we are going to be looking at fitting ERTMS, which is the European Rail Traffic Management System, to Clan Line at a later date, potentially. It's all going to be dependent upon the tests that are being conducted on 60163 Tornado, a Black 5 and a diesel. The whole point of fitting ERTMS is to allow us to use main lines such as the East Coast Main Line, which will be the next one to have that fitted. In future, signalling is not going to be necessarily in fixed blocks. They're going to be moving blocks. It's going to mean that we actually have more capacity in our railways to run trains. And steam locomotives, I'm afraid, are going to have to fit in as much as they can around the normal service patterns. So that's why we have to implement these advances in technology in the best way possible to our steam locomotives.
And of course, running on the main line means that you can run at speeds far more typical of a locomotive of that quality. What sort of top speed is she limited to?
We're limited to 75 miles an hour, and that's primarily because of the 6'2" driving wheels, because actually your top speed on the British main line is restricted by the size of your driving wheels, not necessarily what you could have achieved in British rail days. So, for example, locomotives like the 9S would be far, far more restricted in speed if they were able to go out onto the main line because of the smaller drivers.
So, obviously, as you mentioned, COVID-19 has made this year a challenge. Has she been out much at all?
We had 2 trips at the start of the year, and then virtually everything has been cancelled, including, unfortunately, one of our last trips of the year, up until December 2nd. We are currently waiting on whether or not we will be running what will be the last trip of the year for us. Now, we're a society that's actually in a really, really privileged position. I really do mean privileged, because we have very good financial reserves, and we also have amazing supporters, for which we recently did a small coal appeal, and I'm delighted to say that many members actually donated money towards our coal supplies for the rest of the year. Unlike most heritage railways, whereby if you don't run anything, you can't pay staff, we're an entirely volunteer-led organisation, and from our point of view, our biggest things that actually affect us are rent. So we've been very, very lucky with the association that we have with Bellman British Pullman and with DB Cargo and with Network Rail, actually, in terms of our stay in Stewart's Lane shed. So from my point of view as treasurer, it's not been a great year for putting money into the pot for our 2027 overhaul, because that's when we're predicted to go out of traffic and have to have our major overhaul to bring her back into traffic. But in terms of how bad it could have been, well, actually, we've had a pretty reasonable year, and there are other heritage railways out there that are doing much, much worse than us, unfortunately. And, you know, my heartfelt sympathies and support go out to all of them, because COVID-19 has been one of the greatest challenges this planet has ever faced. And so many of our steam railways and our locomotive owning groups are coming through it, and they're working really, really, really hard.
It's fantastic. Now, you mentioned coal. Of course, we're coming to the end of being able to source coal from Britain. Will that be another challenge for you?
I don't believe it will be that much of a challenge. We already source coal. I'm not sure about it for our society. I put my hands up and say, but I know throughout the heritage industry, we already source coal from other locations. It's just frustrating from my point of view of trying in the background to be more of an environmentalist, have more environmentalist thinking, that if we've got coal mines in the UK and we're able to use them specifically for tourism and for heritage railways, which are a tiny, tiny proportion of the overall carbon emissions of this country, if it goes towards that specifically, and we're not then shipping it in from other countries, which is a huge more of a cost in carbon because of transporting it, then I'm all for having very specific coal mining in this country. But it must absolutely be in line with the demand that we have ourselves. We mustn't go outside of the remits that are set down by legislation and by, for example, anything on the railway in terms of our own emissions. And we must also present the best, cleanest form of the heritage railway to the general public. Because at the end of the day, we will have to do things like, for example, offset in whatever way we can our carbon emissions.
Now, you talk about hopefully doing your last trip of the year, and I do hope so. In fact, I'll try and make a point of coming to see her go out if you do. She's not a diesel. You can't just press a button and she goes off. How long and how many people does it take to go from a standing start to her steaming out of the shed?
So the engineering staff will be much better placed to answer this, but I'll do the best that I can. Bear in mind that I'm the bean counter and I occasionally turn up at Stewart's Lane with a few rags and some wax polish to give her a bit of a clean. But you're talking about at least a day's worth of advanced preparation. You'll be oiling around the loco, you'll be cleaning out detritus, in terms of Clan Line, polishing her up to the nines. You'll be doing lots of testing. There's a lot of procedures that we need to do in terms of testing things like, for example, the brakes, regulator. We'll be looking at, for example, any of the electronic equipment that we have on board, such as GSMR, black box recording. All of these things get checked as part of your fitness to run exam. Once the fitness to run exam is done, you're then ready to go, effectively. But that could take up to a day in terms of preparing Clan Line for her trips, because the MNLPS, we pride ourselves on the level of service and maintenance and care and attention and compliance that we do in terms of keeping this locomotive out on the main line.
Now, she's absolutely splendid, and one of the honours she's had this year, of course, was our good friends at Hornby, who are celebrating their centenary, have included a rather fabulous model of Clan Line within their special editions to celebrate this special event. Have you seen one, and what are your thoughts, Simon?
I've seen it. I love it. I think it is so fitting that Clan Line is the loco that brought Hornby back to the fore, and in its centenary year, we get to be at the fore yet again. The wooden display plinth is marvellous. I know that the MNLPS has received a couple of models in order to raffle them off, so watch this space. From my point of view, I'm going to see if I get my Christmas bonus, and there might be one waiting for me at home at some point. But I have one of the original Clan Line releases. I have the very first release Clan Line model, and I love it. It is always normally on my shelf in my bedroom sitting over me. So will I buy it? Yes, probably.
I'm not surprised then. You may well see one turn up on my lap as well. Simon, it's been a great pleasure to talk to you. Well done to everybody on the team for keeping Clan Line in such good condition, to getting her through this challenge, and I really do hope you're back on the main line in December.
Thank you. Just one last word then on that note, and I want to make this to, broaden this to everyone in the railway industry. Everyone who's working so hard throughout this crisis should be really proud of the efforts that they're doing. I've looked across and I've seen so many different fundraisers. I've seen so many different plans put in place. I have seen people working so incredibly hard throughout the heritage railway industry, and I'm very proud to be a part of that. And I know from my side of things, looking towards the MNLPS, there are some amazing people around us. We just have to stick together. We just have to look forward, and, better days are coming. Better days are coming for all of us.
Yes, I'm sure they are. And as I said, it's wonderful that when we get to those better days, our fantastic railway heritage in all its varieties will still be there waiting for us. Simon, pleasure to speak to you, and good luck to you with the final trip of the year. Cheers.
Thank you, Lawrence. Take care.